One of the main hallmarks of the past 2.5 years of the Trump administration's domestic policy is its attack on long-since established civil and human rights, from attempts to strip the Civil Rights Act of 1965 to threats against the legal recognition of transgender people's existence. We are currently witnessing a widespread assault on reproductive rights, specifically the right of pregnant people to legal and safe abortions in any situation. This right was a central issue of the women's liberation movement of the 60s and 70s, whose members fought militantly for control of their own bodies. Their goals were partially realized with the landmark Supreme Court case of Roe v. Wade in 1973, which established abortion access as a fundamental right, though still allowing individual states to place restrictions on later-term abortions, and even provisional anti-abortion laws should Roe v. Wade someday be appealed. The principles established by this particular case have been revisited and revised by the court since, but now, with Trump's successful nomination of the racist pig, Brett Kavanaugh, opponents of reproductive rights now make up a majority on the bench. Sensing a potential sea change, various state legislatures have written bills severely restricting or even criminalizing abortion, with a law of the latter type, of course, recently passing in Alabama. The nature of this shift should not be in any way misunderstood. In no state in this country does popular support for criminalizing abortion reach even 25%. The fact that these attacks on human rights are even entertained, despite their massive unpopularity, is a glaring sign of the undemocratic nature of law in this country. The courts and legislatures will only follow the will of the people when they are forced or opportunistically compelled to. Otherwise, anything is fair game. These attacks can only be responded to with a unified and militant expression of popular opposition. Abortion on this continent is a hell of a lot older than the United States, and it sure as fuck will outlive it. Free abortions on demand forever. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sophia and Sue. Okay, so basically, I am here to give a report back on what has happened this past weekend in South Alabama and Northwest Florida. So, as we know, about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, KIV signed into law the most restrictive ban on abortions in the nation. So, immediately there was actions formed to protest this, and actions from Huntsville, which is at the top of the state near Tennessee, all the way down to Mobile, which is near Florida, where I live. And I would say there were thousands of people who participated all across the state of Alabama this past weekend. So on Saturday, we traveled to Mobile from Pensacola, and myself and Ilan, who is a candidate comrade here in Pensacola, created a trans-inclusive, trans-affirming banner for the rally that says "Their uterus, their choice." I know it's been circulated a little bit on Facebook. So we traveled to Mobile on Saturday, and when we got there were about 200 people. And it was people from Northwest Florida, similar to where we are, South Alabama and that region. People came from Mississippi, I believe. And we gathered in Bienville Square, which is in the middle of downtown Mobile. And, there were speakers and chanting and, just a general rally. We hung our banner up front and center amongst the people, so everybody got to see it, because the struggle for reproductive rights, definitely, we have an opportunity to take it in a trans-inclusive, trans-affirming direction, which is what we're trying to do. And so we wanted it to be front and center so everybody could see it. And after a few speakers, including Shakezia Clemens, who is a black woman who was a victim of police brutality last year in South Alabama at a Waffle House, she showed up and spoke. And after she spoke, we marched through downtown Mobile, probably 7 or 8 blocks. And at first, the organizers, the Mobile Bay Green Party, tried to have it in the street. That was their original plan. And Unfortunately, they were stopped very quickly by the cops, who said that, they could march, you just had to be on the sidewalks. And, we just kind of went with it. It wasn't our march. We weren't trying to disrupt it or anything like that. And so we marched along the sidewalks mostly for the first part of the march. We got a lot of people driving by who were, honking in support and, waving at us and cheering us on and stuff. People sitting in cafes outside. And the last half of the march, we wound up shutting down an intersection in downtown Mobile, because we were tired of being on the sidewalk. There was a lot of construction, and it was difficult to navigate around. And of course, this, that's exactly what the police wanted, was for us to have as difficult a time as possible. So we got kind of sick of it, and we shut down an intersection on our way back to the venue. Once we got back to the venue, there were more speakers, including myself. There is a video of that on Facebook. I can try to link in the email for the party. And there are a lot of other great speakers as well, including a friend of mine who went to medical school in Cuba and has been an abortion provider in the past. And she spoke about the pressing issues right now. And there were several other speakers, from Alabama to Florida, all the way to Ireland. Somebody who spoke was from Dublin, and he recounted in the 1980s the struggle for reproductive rights and abortion there. So it was a really good movement of solidarity between everybody. We saw the deep South coming together there, because there's not a lot of organization in South Alabama, Northwest Florida, and especially South Mississippi. And so for this tri-state area to come together like this in such high numbers was extraordinary. And we're definitely glad that it happened. Mobile planned a 2-day rally. Unfortunately, the second day I could not go. But from the report backs that I got, there again were over 200 people. There was another march. And the recommitment to solidarity with working class and oppressed persons, who are the main people suffering from these new restrictions in reproductive justice. So, and as far as reactionaries and things of that sort, the first day, and I know this is included in my article in the paper, there were a handful of pro-life protesters. They were there for about 40 minutes, give or take, and I don't know what it's like up there in New York City, but down here, or at least in Alabama, it's illegal to have alcohol on city park premises. And so... Okay, sorry about that. I got something else popped up on my screen. And so the pro-life reactionary people had alcohol for some reason. Not really sure why, but there were plainclothes police officers who were, of course, surveilling and monitoring this rally. And they caught them drinking and threw them out, which was strange. So they left after about 40 or 45 minutes, and after that we pretty much had complete control of the park. We had complete control of our rally, of the march, and on the second day they actually did not even show up at all. So it went really well, to have been organized in less than 72 hours. It was very coordinated, very organized. The Mobile Bay Green Party definitely went above and beyond. And the aftermath of this is that there have been two new organizations formed, one of which is the Alabama Coalition for Reproductive Rights, and that's it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a coalition for reproductive justice that is trans-centered and working class centered, and it's based around getting people information about any upcoming restrictions or enforcements or updates on this law, or information on where to find safe and reliable abortion access at. And just yesterday, the Northwest Florida Coalition for Reproductive Rights was founded, and that we are a coalition similarly working to provide better reproductive health. And these laws have not hit Florida yet, but that doesn't mean they're not going to. As I've stated many times over the past few days, the pendulum of fascism is swinging closer and closer to us. So definitely forming a coalition preemptively is a great idea. And so basically, that's all that happened in Mobile. In Montgomery, I believe there were well over 1,000 people who rallied there. That one was handled by the ACLU and the Yellow Hammer Fund, which is an organization that provides money and other resources to people who need safe and reliable abortions. So there's a lot of networking and connection going on right now. Two organizations have been formed over the last week, linking up with abortion rights groups and other groups like that. And I know there's been at least one senator or lawmaker in Mobile who has introduced a law to try and have this ban repealed. But in the meantime, obviously what we're going to be doing is reaffirming our dedication and help to the masses, to the working class, the people who are definitely the most affected by this, working class Black and brown people, transgender people, transgender men, and non-binary people with a uterus, intersex people, people who are frequently overlooked in the conversation on reproductive justice.